Escape being altered. Table of contents, the paths, the additions, fences and fury, unintentions, questions, accountability, more trouble, decision time, the move, learning and liability, caution never to the wind, results and competency, process and performance, final realizations. To those who survived their transformation and to those who remembered who they were before it began. Those that know where they are going without the safety net or lively plan. Copyright and disclaimer. No part of this publication may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means, electronic, mechanical, photocopying, recording, or otherwise, without the prior written permission of the publisher and author, except in the case of brief quotations embodied in critical articles or reviews. This book is a work of creative nonfiction and or fictionalized memoir. Names, characters, place, and incidents either are the product of the author's imagination or are used fictitiously. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, events, or locales is entirely coincidental unless otherwise explicitly stated. The author and publisher have made every effort to ensure that the information presented in this book is accurate and reflective of the author's experience, perspective, and research. However, this book is not intended to provide medical, legal, or psychological advice. Readers are encouraged to seek guidance from qualified professionals where appropriate. Neither the author nor Vylenteez Publishing shall be held liable for any loss or damage allegedly arising from any information or suggestion contained in this book. For permissions, inquiries, or licensing, contact Vylenteez Publishing. Justiceofliberties@mail.com. Justiceofliberties.com. How I escaped being altered. The paths. I remember walking down the path and my brother got hit with a plant. His arm began to swell and he soon felt real sick. And I helped him get back to the best of health like I did so many times to my mother and father. I cried over and over again, remembering all the times we were in the river. We escaped crocodiles and we were hunting warthogs. We were just behind the ridge of the mountain. We used to jump off the cliff into the lagoon. I remember when I got sick and he ran to get food and hunted little rabbits so I could get well. I remembered my mother and father getting sick and it was from certain plants that touched them. We wrote about it and passed it along in history, but never gathered enough information because our family members always got sick and died. I only had information of 3 plants that I began with. My mother and father were so scared to venture too far, but at the same time realized that we were in the safest part of the jungle. I got over the sadness as the days went on, and I relied on new knowledge, on the old experiences I had, and I wrote down and documented them for my future kin. I remember when my father just touched this one tree, and he had some cuts on him already, on his arm, and he started suffering convulsions and paralysis. We gave him a lot more water that I got from the springs. I got over the sadness as the days went on, and I relied on new knowledge on the old experiences I had, and I wrote down and documented them for my future kin. I remember when my father just touched this one tree, and he had some cuts on him already, on his arm, and he started suffering convulsions and paralysis. We gave him a lot more water that I got from the springs, and he drank a lot of that water. Some of that water, I boiled it into a container that I created that led to another container and drips down. And then I found on the coast some salt rocks, and I grind those down and put some of that inside that water. I believe he was hit with strychno sap that got on his arm, which didn't help that after he got, which didn't help that, after he got better and he walked into another portion of the Amazon and encountered what we call Eurocreptins, crepitans. No, Hura crepitans, also known as the dynamite tree, because a lot of painful rashes and burning to the point that my dad, in his old age, said, I can't keep doing this. Little did he know, I was documenting everything. And I drew pictures of what these plants look like and what not to do. For instance, my mother started walking with me because I was seeking something to hunt. Well, my mom started acting weird, dancing around like she never has. I found out that she was smelling a flower from the Bergamansia flower. So she began hallucinating, and the good thing is she didn't intake a lot, but she was suffering from hallucinations. I take her straight into our hut and bring her back to health. My dad was super dramatic, speaking to me in our foreign language, cursing me out for even allowing her to walk with me. I notified him, though, that I've been taking a lot of notes, and the Chandrudendron tomatosum, poison dart frog plants, Mucuna pruriens, Nerium oleander, Dendrogenide, Jatropha, Bergamansia suavolens were the main reasons why we kept getting sick. I just gazed with eyes glazed over. Finally, over the impending dangers, I grabbed a machete and suited up in my finest Zabrex and bearskin clothing from the garments my dad and my mom made when I was young. The additions, they just kept adding to it. In the good weather, I believe my father was the first one that made snakeskin or crocodile boxer briefs. But we'll not talk about that. Maybe another time. However, I suited up and I went chopping. I chopped everything down to shrubs, making sure nothing got on me. Then I threw all my gear into the tub that we have of some water. Then I threw all my gear into the tub that we have of some water that we have for washing. I put some quillaja saponaria and gave it a good scrub. Then pulling it out, rinsing and drying, of course. After that, my parents didn't get sick, and they didn't die from any sickness. They actually died of old age, which left me and my brother, of course, for a good while. We had a lot of adventure. My brother and I were inseparable. We're still young, yes, and his passing has left me heartbroken. But being that it was just, we never really questioned too much. We had a sister once, but she disappeared. Just one day she went out for a walk. I saw her walk over the ridge. I actually followed her, and she didn't know I followed her. It was a night just before dawn, and I remembered saying in my head, she wants to get killed. Because no one needs anything at this time in the morning. Once I set my eyes on her at my check, I seen her walk over the ridge. And a place my father did not ever want us to go. He always said we can't explore that region of the forest. It was forbidden. He would tell us to stay away from there. Well, she walked over the ridge. I come to the realization that she was taking her garments off as she walked over the ridge. When she walked over the ridge, she was nude, and I thought she was performing a ritual. I then wanted to shout for her, but I wanted to see what she was going to do, because she looked as if she was preparing for something. And then she did it. She began running as fast as she could. She disappeared from my sight. She ran down the ridge. I started running up the ridge because I wanted to see what she was looking at. When I finally gazed up the ridge, the sun coming up above the ridge, shining over the edge, and I don't know what it is. I thought as I ran up the ridge before I peeked over. I said in my mind, did she discover the end of our world? Not knowing that technically yes, but not necessarily physically at that moment. Coming from the darkness. As I got up to the ridge and looked over, my eyes adjusted. Coming from the darkness and various plants that could possibly been around me. Since I did not search that location nor did I do any chopping of trees in that area, as my eyes adjust, I did see little tiny balls of sunlight glaring upon what seems to be lines of shiny monsters, watching us with their mouths open. But as my eyes adjust more, I seen that they didn't move as my sister ran down the ridge into that trail. The ridge had rocks and a little bit of plants, but it was not like our side. Our side was a world of greenery. On the other side was rocks and lights, metal barriers that I didn't know at the time was called a fence. My sister hit the fence and fell back on the floor. By that time, it was just about to make daybreak as I looked. My sister somehow got through the fence, and somebody else was bringing a huge sky-colored piece of animal skin to put on top of her. I remember as I went down the trail to go home, I thought, what kind of animal did they kill that is blue and the size of an human that they could get such a big piece of skin for her? Thank you. This is how I escape being altered. It's just the beginning. By that time, I was standing up on the ridge where she could see me.